consciousness is better. Everyone acts in this world to maintain his family and their paraphernalia, but no one is working without some self-interest, some personal gratification, be it concentrated or extended.
The criterion of perfection is to act in Krishna consciousness and not with a view to enjoying the fruits of work. To act in Krishna consciousness is the duty of every living entity because all are constitutionally parts and parcels of the Supreme.
Yeah, the verse again?
Chapter 6, text 1, and we're in the purport. I'll keep reading because it'll probably take you a while to find this. We're in the middle of the first paragraph, almost at the end. The parts of the body work for the satisfaction of the whole body. The limbs of the body do not act for self-satisfaction, but for the satisfaction of the complete whole. Did you find this?
I'm good.
Okay, go ahead and read on.
The sannyasis sometimes artificially think that they have become liberated from all material duties, and therefore they cease to perform Agnihotra yajnas, fire sacrifices, but actually they are self-interested because their goal is to become one with impersonal Brahman. Such a desire is greater than any material desire, but it is not without self-interest.
Anandi, go ahead.
Similarly, the mystic yogi who practices the yoga system with half-open eyes, seizing all material activities, desires some satisfaction for his personal self. But a person acting in Krishna consciousness works for the satisfaction of the whole without self-interest.
A Krishna conscious person has no desire for self-satisfaction. His criterion of success is the satisfaction of Krishna, and thus he is the perfect sannyas, or perfect yogi.
Lord Chaitanya, the highest perfection and symbol of renunciation, prays in this way. Nadanam najanam na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye, mama janmani janmanishware, avatar bhaktirahaytuki. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor to enjoy beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers.
To me?
Yeah.
Next. Oh, I'm on database. That was the end of it for me.
Oh, really? On Vedabase? Nor do I want any number of followers. What I want only is the causeless mercy of your devotional service in my life, birth after birth.
Okay.
All right. Well, read the next verse then, Captain Tom.
Oh, the Sanskrit?
Just the translation.
6.2. What is called renunciation, we should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme, O son of Pandu. For one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification.
Okay, we went through that last night when it was talking about being free from all desires. It's kind of a scary thing, but then as we read on, it said, when you get there, then you get all of these really nice things, these nice feelings. So we're not going to focus on this too much. We're not ready for that. We'll just read those words. Okay, Anandi, next verse.
For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means. And for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means.
A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities.
One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is a friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well.
Next verse, let's see. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy.
Let's try reading this purport. Go ahead, Anandi. Just 6.
Yeah. The purpose of practicing eightfold yoga is to control the mind in order to make it a friend in discharging the human mission. Unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga for show is simply a waste of time.
One who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and its mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior.
As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of the personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart of everyone as Paramatma.
Real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. For one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord follows automatically.
So a few sentences back, I saw the kind of right in the middle. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. So we're talking about the mind being controlled, and then the sentence before that, one who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and its mission are spoiled. Then this next sentence, the constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. Then the next sentence, as long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy. So at first read, I was thinking, what is that sentence doing in there? He's talking about the mind, and now all of a sudden he's talking about the constitutional position of the living entity. But this time through, I think I got it. Does everybody see that?
No.
Everybody... Okay. Did anybody get it? Want to try unpacking it?
Well, it's following the order of Paramatma, isn't it?
Yeah, that's where it's leading to. What do you see, Suprita?
Like we discussed in the 4th chapter, Kama Isha, Krodha Isha, like anger, lust, and greed are the 3 things that can affect us. So when our mind is not controlled, we are more prone to becoming angry and destructing things around us. So controlling the mind, these days yoga classes just teach you to do yoga asanas, but not actually help control the mind. So we have to learn how to control the mind. Only then we can try to, curb all these bad things,
Yeah.
bad
Okay.
emotions.
Good. That was in there. What I was looking at was the sentence before that. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior, and how that relates to the sentences that it's sandwiched in between. And what I see this time through is, if we look at the one before it, one who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and its mission are spoiled. So we have a mission in life, but if we're living with our worst enemy, if we've got someone in our head constantly taking us away from our mission, Then he explains what the mission is. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of, as Suprita pointed out, lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc.
Oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
But he's not complete, you know. Can I just say that? Like, who am I to say that this is not a complete concept?
Uh-huh.
But I'm going to say it.
Okay. Yeah, it didn't come across to you at the first read. Yeah. It's
No, but you know, but I'm thinking about you. You could say, you know, I'm going to control my mind. I'm going to control, and you could make every effort to do that. But the nature of the mind is very tricky. It's like the monkey mind. It always is thinking and always trying to trick you. Like even, isn't there a famous story about a sage who was in the forest, who was meditating on the, I forget his name, but then he saw a deer mother, you know, drowned and left the baby. And then he started taking care of the baby deer, you know, and then instead of thinking of Krishna at the end of his life, he thought about the baby deer, and then he was born as a deer. So the mind is very, very tricky. I think that it's only by the Guru's grace. You need grace, kripa, to overcome all of this. So I think there's something more to say about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, good for all of you who can control your mind. I mean, I just feel like the mind is tricky. You could try, but it's got tricks up its sleeves. It does.
That mind has a lot of
Sorry,
say.
that's how I feel.
That was good.
That's how I feel.
That was perfect. That was just like that guy that Lord Chaitanya saw reading the Bhagavad Gita that couldn't even read properly, and he was crying, and Chaitanya said, you're the actual reader of Bhagavad Gita. So yeah, we really do need that grace, that kripa, the mercy coming from someone else to control our mind. On our own, we can't do it. But we're supposed to at least give it a try. We do have to.
Yeah, I'm not saying you shouldn't give it a try. I'm just saying there's more to it's, you know what I mean?
Yep. And just a spoiler alert, going to give away the plot of this chapter. Arjun's going to agree with you and say, I can't do this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You
Okay.
remember what he says? Controlling the mind is like, he doesn't say the mind has a lot of tricks up its sleeves. He says controlling the mind is like trying to control the wind.
Ah, nice metaphor.
Yeah. Prabhupada, in the purport, he says, one can imagine going out and trying to block the wind with your hands and to redirect it.
Arjun wasn't a sailor.
Yeah. So a good sailor can use the wind no matter which way it's blowing. You can go in any direction. I know, I've been out sailing. You can sail into the wind. You have to tack, go back and forth, but it takes longer. Let's see. Oh, and I was thinking about the rednecks down in Florida when a hurricane was coming. They said they got out their guns and they said, we're gonna fight this thing. I don't know if they were really serious or not. I mean, some of those people are really scary. But they were self-proclaimed rednecks. We're rednecks. We're going to stop this hurricane from landing, and everyone's going to see us as heroes. Okay, so according to Anandi, anyone that thinks they can control their mind is just as foolish.
No, what I'm saying is all power to you, but I know the mind is very tricky and it can come up at any time, you know.
Yep.
I'm very, very, very leery about saying that I can control my mind.
Yeah.
Because before you know it, it's thinking a million things.
Let's see, you mentioned the story that's in the 5th canto. And also within the fifth canto, I remember reading some direction by some yogi saying that once the mind has been captured, you should, how is it? You shouldn't trust it, just as you don't trust a wild animal.
Yes, that's
Once
good
it's been
point.
you can't expect that it's going to sit still. If you've captured a wild, like a tiger in the wild, you're not just going to bring it into the camp and set it down. You know, if you expect to keep that tiger, you got to put it in a really strong cage, and don't get too close to that cage. Okay, but still, text 5 and 6, one must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. So we do have some control over the mind, and in chapter 17, there will be some discussion on the austerity of the mind. Mana prasada somyatvat. It says that satisfaction, gravity, what else? What else? There's like 5 things given for temperance of the mind. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, as long as you allow the mind to dwell on sense objects, your mind will never be satisfied. Today's modern world unnecessarily agitates the mind to dwell on sense objects. So I've sat out in college campuses and read that purport with students, and they loved it. They said, wow, nobody's ever taught us that before. We've never heard that anywhere. And it's true, everyone agrees. The purport goes on and says, one should learn to direct the mind to always be thinking of doing good for others. And one should also meditate on and study and read the stories given in the Vedas. And that's where our thoughts should go. So we do have some control. Another mind control story is at our old house, my son lived across the street from us. It's a little tiny gravel road, and his goats would get out and they'd go right into my garden, and I'd try to chase them away, and I'd shoot them with a hose, and I'd wave sticks at them, and I didn't want to hit them. Finally, I would just go over to my son's trailer and say, hey, come and get your goats. But while I was walking over there, the goats just followed me. And I thought, well, that's just like your thoughts. If you have thoughts that are plaguing you and you're just trying to push them out of your head, it doesn't work that way. You cannot push thoughts out of your head. You need to lead those thoughts where you want them to go. And so we do have that control. We pick up a book, we read, you call up somebody, you talk to somebody about some other topic, just to get those disturbing thoughts out of your head.
And then you have the mantra, right? Mantra.
Yes.
Control the mind.
Yeah. And you focus on the mantra too. Control the
Yep.
mind. Deliver the mind.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, go ahead.
In this verse, Atma is translated as the mind.
In text 5, or both, yeah. Prabhupada addresses that in the purport to text 5. Do you want to look at that?
Sure.
Captain Coleman is not only a captain, he's also a yoga teacher. So he's going to bring in all kinds of knowledge.
Tomfoolery.
Yes, he will also bring in some swashbuckling tomfoolery.
So here it's also always Atma that Prabhupada translates as mind.
Well, here, let's read the purport to text 5. I forget who left off. Go ahead, Ananda, you start reading the purport.
The word Atma denotes body, mind, and soul, depending upon different circumstances. In the yoga system, the mind and the conditioned soul are especially important.
Since the mind, since the mind is the central point of yoga practice, Atma refers here to the mind. The purpose of the yoga system is to control the mind and to draw it away from attachment to sense objects.
It is stressed herein that the mind must be so trained that it can deliver the conditioned soul from the mire of nescience. In material existence, one is subjected to the influence of the mind and the senses.
In fact, the pure soul is entangled in the material world because the mind is involved with the false ego, which desires to lord it over material nature. Therefore, the mind should be trained so that it will not be attracted by the glitter of material nature. And thus, in this way, the conditioned soul may be saved. One should not degrade oneself by attraction to sense objects.
Nandi?
The more one is attracted by sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in material existence. The best way to disentangle oneself is to always engage the mind in Krishna consciousness. The word he is used for emphasizing this point. That is, that one must do this. It is also said, oh, somebody else can read that Sanskrit. Mana eva manushan.
You could just read the translation, Isaac.
Okay. For man, mind is the cause of bondage and mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense object is the cause of bondage, and mind detached from the sense objects is the cause of liberation. Amrita Bindu Upanishad. 2. Therefore, the mind, which is always engaged in Krishna consciousness, is the cause of supreme liberation.
I've never noticed that before, the Amrita Bindu Upanishad.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard of that one.
Is that the name of an Upanishad?
Apparently, Amrita Bindu, a drop of
Okay.
nectar.
It's a beautiful name.
Yeah.
It's interesting in that verse, mana is used.
Mm-hmm. Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshaya.
Instead of Atma, right?
Yeah. Bandhaya vishaya sango muktyai nirvishayam mana. Boy, you can almost understand it from the Sanskrit.
Yeah.
Bandhaya, we're bound by vishaya, sense objects. Sangha, association with. Muktyai nirvishayam manaha. And mukti, liberation, comes by near vishaya, by giving up the vishaya within the mind. All right. Shall we move on?
Yes.
Let's keep those minds active.
Generally, we use Atma to designate the soul in Prabhupada's writing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, typically Atma does mean the soul, but here he says it can mean the body, the soul, the mind, depending on different circumstances. Just like the word Purusha, Purusha sometimes will mean Krishna, the Supreme Purushottama, or Purusha, is that right? Purushottama.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Purusha, well, in Hindi, that would mean male. That's what's written on the boys' bathroom is Purush. But then in other places, it's Purusho Prakritistohi. It also can mean the living entities. So it gets used in a lot of different ways depending on the context. So here, Prabhupada says, it means the mind. So let's see. Suprita, text 7.
For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. To such a man, to such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are always given.
So just by conquering the mind, we get that. I wish conquering it was so easy, like, just having an arm wrestling match and haha, I beat you. But like Anandi says, there's just so many tricks up the sleeves of that mind. And that mind's got unlimited sleeves too. So many tricks. Just thinking that you've conquered the mind is one of the tricks.
Yes.
And then Prabhupada brings up the last snare of Maya is when you finally conquer the mind and you achieve this platform of tranquility and you reach the super soul, the last snare of Maya is to think, oh, that's me. I'm the super soul. So like, how many tricks are there? Why has this thing been so booby-trapped? Why? That's a sincere question. I don't have an answer for it. I'm just kind of wondering. Why did Krishna design this thing so hard? Such an elaborate scheme.
People who knew Krishna also like really suffered. Like Rukmini Devi, she was really struggling, and Radha also loves
Yeah.
and separation.
Oh,
They all
yeah.
went through it, but yeah, so we are nothing compared to what they were going through.
And as Bhishma was lying on the bed of arrows, shot through full of arrows, and the Pandavas came to see him with Krishna, Bhishma was saying, what injustices have come upon you who are so noble and always follow the path of Dharma, even when the Supreme Lord is right there as your friend? How have all of these things come about? They must certainly be by his will. He wanted them to happen. Yeah, I still don't get it. Once in a while, I sort of feel like I get it. But yeah, even his own people. And then in the Bhagavad Gita, he tells Arjuna, you can declare it. My devotee will never perish. Kamteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. He says, you could say it on your name. I'll back it up. I'm not going to let anyone say that Arjuna told a lie. I will always protect my devotee, but that protection doesn't mean taking care of the material body, taking care of material circumstances. But wow, does it even mean he's going to help us control our mind? According to Anandi, that's all we've got going for us, is Krishna's grace and the grace of the Guru.
It's everything. The Guru's grace. Yep.
So I'll just leave all of that as a building tension. We'll find the tension being resolved as we read on. Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita. I'm looking at text 7. Shitoshna shukadukeshu tatamana pamanayo. And text 8. Go ahead, Tom.
Text 8. Let me scroll down. Let's see. I don't have a book in front of me.
Yeah.
A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same.
So his only acquisition, his only possession is He's satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. That's all he's got. And he's satisfied with that to the point that gold doesn't entice him, or all of the things that you can trade for gold. No, I'm satisfied. I got knowledge and realization. Okay, text 9, Anandi.
A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral, is it meditators or mediators?
Mediators.
Mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind.
So it's not enough just to see gold as the same value as stones. He says this is further advanced when we can deal in society without getting upset by people who have different opinions from us, by people who don't like us, and to see them equally with the people that we agree with, the affectionate benefactors, the envious, friends and enemies, pious and sinners, sees them all with an equal mind. Okay, next verse.
I
A
have,
trans
sorry. So how do you apply this in your life? So if someone is rude to you, how do you apply this?
How do I apply it? Honestly, I apply it theoretically. Like I'm not even on the previous verse, seeing pebbles, stones, and gold as the same.
Well, Mitcha, you'd have to be an avadut to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, but to, sorry to jump in, but if somebody is rude to you, et cetera, the way I find works for me is that if I'm centered in the self, you can ignore them. I mean, you don't have to react.
Yeah.
You see God in everybody. That's what we were taught in the ashram that I lived in, see God in each other. So, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of time it works. Again, I really find that if you don't start off your morning right, then you're messed up, you're screwed. You have to get up and meditate and chant and be centered in what you believe in, and then you can handle all this stuff.
Yeah. When we used to go out to distribute books all day long, and Tom used to do that too back in the day, chanting japa was like, okay, I'm doing this so I can tolerate all of the rude people I'm going to meet. Mm-hmm. And going out there, you would expect to meet a few rude people. And when I did meet them, it was like, okay, I was kind of expecting to see you today. And I was prepared for it. And so it didn't really hurt that bad. What really hurts, though, is when you're in the ashram or in your own family, when people who are close to you, when they treat you rudely, because that's unexpected. And you can't just walk away from those people. They're in your life.
Yeah, it's not like you can disassociate yourself from them also. So
Yeah.
I guess tolerance comes into picture then.
Yeah. So that's why he says a person is considered still further advanced when they can be like this. This is, what does it say? Buddhi vishishyate is far advanced. Sama buddhir vishishyate. Having equal intelligence, such a person is further advanced than in the previous verse. So, yeah, it's a challenge. So, how do I apply it? Yeah, theoretically, and sometimes it works, and like Anandi said, sometimes it doesn't. And you just have to ride it out and try not to respond to it, because when you do, typically it's going to make things worse. But then also there are situations where you do have to stand your ground and draw borders if people are abusing you. That's getting into another topic, though.
Mm-hmm.
But if you recognize your own vulnerability, then you see it in others and you feel a little more compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I see my own fallibility when someone else is losing it, and I recognize that I'm easily in the same position, then I can have a little more compassion,
Empathy.
a little more empathy for the person that I would otherwise just be completely put off by.
Yeah, that's a good word. A good emotion is compassion. To turn anger around. Anger, or what else would you feel? You could feel hurt. At first you feel hurt, you're surprised. Then you feel angry. I should fight back. But then you transform that into compassion and empathy. Try to think how they must feel. I read a book by this Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh. It was on anger. It was pretty good. It was very similar to what's in the Bhagavad Gita. But one point he said in there was, next time you're really angry, get a mirror and look at yourself and see how ugly you look when you're angry. And
Or just imagine what it would be like to wake up as that person that you're holding the grudge against,
yeah,
and be like, oh my God, that must be like hell to wake up and be like that.
Thank you.
okay. Well, I hope none of you have some ongoing thing like that with anybody at present. I've gone through a couple of people like that, and oh man, it's hard to get those people out of your head.
But like my mother, she has Alzheimer's, right? And a symptom of that is she gets in anxiety and she'll just obsess over something because it doesn't make any sense. And you can I get frustrated all the time. But then I just have to appreciate what it must be like, how challenging it must be from her perspective.
Mm,
That your
yeah,
mind you're losing all these abilities. And
and
it kind of melts you a little bit, you know?
yeah, and as you said, seeing your own vulnerability in others. Most of the time, when we're worried about something or angry about something, it doesn't make any sense at all. There's
Mm.
really rhyme or reason to it. Um, there's some quote I found. It might be Mark Twain. He said that 90% of the things I worry about don't even happen, and the ones that do aren't half as bad as I thought they would be.
Right.
So anytime I'm worried about something and then it doesn't happen, then I say, oh, I've done all that worrying. So next time something comes up, I've already worried about it. So that covered it. But it doesn't work that way. I stored up a bank balance of worry so I can spend it on other problems. All right. So that was text 9 that brought up this discussion. And who read that? Was that Isaac? Did you?
No, I'm reading 10, I believe.
Okay, go ahead.
A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness.
Okay, so far he's been talking about controlling the mind and cutting off attachments, stopping things. But now he's finally given something, what would you say, positive. Always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. Of course, he hasn't given any clear definition of what that means. And the Sanskrit for it is yogi yunjita satatam So the yogi should always engage yunjita, must concentrate in Krishna consciousness. Atmanam rahasi stita. And here, Atma means all three: body, mind, and self. So it's Atma rahasi stita. So stita means situated. Live alone, yata chitatma nirashir aparigraha, and be free from feelings of possessiveness. So more knows. So that's the first yes that's been given here. Yes, control the mind. Well, that was there, but that's controlling the mind seems like a lot of no's. We need some yeses. What's that called in there's the yam and the niyam. Which is which?
Do this, don't do that.
What is yam and what is niyam? I think yam is the do nots, and niyam.
No, I don't know. I always thought niyama was don't, you know.
Well, Yamaraj.
Okay.
He's the king of, punishing you for doing the wrong things. And niyam, isn't niyam the what to do? Okay, maybe it'll come.
I think it means rule. Niyama.
Niyama means to do?
Rule. A rule, maybe? I don't know. I think it does.
The rules?
Yeah, rules.
Okay, niyama. Right, let's move on. Text 11 and 12.
Is it my turn?
You're right.
No.
Niyama are positive duties or observances.
Okay. Suprita, go ahead. 11 and 12.
To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities and fixing the mind on one point.
So this is the first time Krishna is actually giving any physical, you should do this. Everything else has just been talks and thoughts, and you should think like this. You should consider these things. Here he's actually telling how to do yoga. Okay, go ahead, Captain. 13, 14.
One moment, please. One should hold one's body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose, thus with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life. One should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life.
Anandi?
Thus practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God or the abode of Krishna by cessation of material existence.
There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough.
He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system.
When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga.
As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendental self. or transcendent self.
In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This, indeed, is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact.
One
Those are
should engage.
nice. The previous verse and then this series of verses, lamp in a windless place. How is that worded? As a lamp in a windless place does not waver. So when you get your mind focused on the meditation, and it's just like a lamp without any wind blowing, and so that flame is burning, unflickering, and it puts out such a nice light. Then you're there. Then the next stage is you start feeling all of these symptoms. Samadhi. See what's before dharana. Yam, niyam, asana, pranayam. Let's see, what was the one of withdrawing from the world? And then
Dhyan is concentrating, right?
dhyan, but there's a stage called dharana where you hold that meditation. And I think that's what that flame is representing when you're in that windless place. So you're holding that, and then this stage he refers to samadhi. So when you're in samadhi, then you feel all of these things in boundless transcendental happiness realized through transcendental senses. One is never shaken even in the midst of greatest difficulty. And so, all of the other things that were talked about, like looking at everyone equally, people that criticize you, people that praise you, seeing them all equally, it's because you just see everything here as so petty, because I am actually something far greater than what I see within what's passing through the sleeves of my mind, the tricks of my mind, the temporary body, and all of the things of the world. They just appear so petty compared to this. So naturally, all those things come about. This equal vision. Okay, next verse, Suprita.
One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind.
Okay, last time we went through this, we read the purport, and the purport talks about the sparrow who laid her eggs, who lost her eggs in the waves of the ocean. How many of you were in this? Okay, Suprita was there. Isaac, you know the story, right? No?
No, I wasn't here for that one.
Okay, but do you know the story?
No, I don't recall it.
Okay, Anandi, do you remember the story?
I wasn't here for that.
Oh, all right.
I know the story of the eggs from the Yoga Vasishta, but not this one.
Okay. Captain Tom, you want to tell the story, or should we just read it in the purport?
Well, Prabhupada tells it so well. She's determined, and she pecks at the ocean. She's going to get her eggs back.
Oh, drop by drop?
Drop by drop.
And flying up
Prabhupada
to
says She began to pick out the water with her small beak, and everyone laughed at her for her impossible determination. News of her activity spread, and at last Garuda, the giant bird carrier of Lord Vishnu, heard it. So Lord Garuda has compassion on the small bird, and the ocean becomes frightened and returns the eggs.
Oh, now I remember.
Grace of Krishna. Okay, did everybody hear what I said, or did that? I think my internet broke.
I heard this grace of Krishna.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I.
All right. Well, that confirms what Anandi was saying earlier, that it's only a fool will think they've got their mind under control. Everyone will laugh at us, just like they laughed at the sparrow for trying to pick out the ocean with her beak. But just by trying, well, here, the last paragraph of that purport. Similarly, the practice of yoga, especially bhakti yoga and Krishna consciousness, may appear to be a very difficult job, but if anyone follows the principles with great determination, the Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. So we make the effort, we put in the effort, and the results are up to Krishna. Krishna will open doors for us.
That's so central to what Prabhupada teaches throughout everything is you have to make the determined effort.
Yeah.
Even though it seems ludicrous or impossible, that's your way of showing reciprocation.
And I've heard it explained that there's a purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that says, if your guru asks you to drain the ocean with a piece of straw, then you should be determined to do it. You should take up the orders of the guru, even if it's something like that. And you should do it with conviction that it is possible. Ludicrous. That's a good word. We're all about making the ludicrous possible. Durgata Gatavam Vedatri. That's a song by Rupa Goswami. Krishna, one of the names of Krishna is, he makes something which is impossible. He makes it possible. All right, so we need to finish this chapter. There are 47 verses, so we're going to have to really go fast now. It's after 8. So, text 25. Who read this one about?
I did.
Okay, go ahead. Captain?
25?
Yep.
Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else.
Anandi?
Oh, sorry. From wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self.
The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds.
Thus, the self-controlled yogi constantly engaged in yoga practice becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord.
29. A true yogi observes me and all beings, and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere.
For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me.
Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances.
He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the truth. He sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna.
Wait, I think I might have skipped one. Are we on 32?
33.
Oh, okay.
And in 32, I forgot to mention that former President Bill Clinton spoke this verse in a lecture at one point. The way Prabhupada translated it doesn't quite bring across what he was saying was that a yogi sees others, he feels equality with all people. If people are happy, the realized devotee, the realized yogi is happy. If people are distressed, the yogi also feels distress.
Mm.
So he has empathy. You used that word earlier.
Paradukka dukki, right?
What's that?
It's paradukka dukki means you're an empath. You
Oh,
feel
yeah. Yeah, you feel others' dukh or misery as your own. Yeah. Empath.
33.
Yeah.
Arjun said, "O Madhusudan, the system of yoga you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady."
The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Lord Shri Krishna said, O mighty son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment.
one whose mind is unbridled. Self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion.
Yeah, I think you read this verse the last time we went through.
The dovetail thing, right?
What's that?
You talked about the dovetail bend or something.
Oh, did we? Okay. Well, I was going to talk about the bridle that a horse wears, or you put that on a horse. The bridle. So the bridle helps you to control a horse. So for one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. Hey, there's Muchu joining us from New Zealand. Where are you? You look like, this doesn't look like your typical home.
This is Burger King.
Oh, okay.
I'm in the city today, and this is where I can get free Wi-Fi for my school. What I need to do. So.
Okay, good. We're glad you're with us. Let's see. We're in chapter 6. We just read text 36, and
Nice.
we want to hear your comments. But there's a lot of people around you that are kind of noisy. So when you're not speaking, then mute your mic.
Okay.
All right. For one whose mind is unbridled. Okay, Krishna's kind of You ever do that when someone comes in and says, this is really hard, this is impossible, I can't do this? So typically the first thing you do is, or the first thing I do, and I've seen other people do it too in counseling, is you agree with them. Yeah, that is really hard. I don't, and so you agree with them just to let them know, I hear you. But then he says, but it is possible. And then, so he gives a few little hints. If you strive by appropriate means, you try to control the mind. Yeah, he said, try to get a grip on that mind. It is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. Those are the two main things. Abhyasena and Vairagyena. I'm looking at text 35 in the Sanskrit. Abhyasena tu kaunteya, Vairagyena chagrihyate. So detachment. And what I see in the word detachment is you're going to fail a bunch of times, but don't let it bother you so much. Be detached from your own failures. Just like with japa, you could be chanting and worrying about like, oh, all of the mantras that I didn't hear. Don't worry about those. Worry about the one you're on right now, just one mantra at a time. Abhyas, so you practice, and vairagyena, detachment. Yeah, you're going to fail, but just don't let that bring you down. Keep on going. And then he repeats that same thing again in text 36. If you strive by appropriate means, you're assured of success. All right, so there, that was Krishna's quick response. In the purport, Prabhupada talks about you're trying to ignite a fire, but if the mind is dwelling on sense gratification, then that's just like pouring water on the fuel that you're trying to light. So you want to, don't, yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. Such a show of yoga may be materially lucrative, but it is useless as far as spiritual realization is concerned. Therefore, one must control the mind by engaging it constantly in the transcendental, loving service of the Lord. Okay. There's a phrase we hear a lot, the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Engage the mind in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So how do you do that? Everybody must have some technique. How do you engage your mind in transcendental loving service to the Lord? I want to hear a little bit from everybody, just a little bit. Super brief soundbite.
Chanting.
Chanting. Okay, good. That was a super brief. That was just one word. That's what I like to hear.
Making prasadam for Krishna.
Okay, wow, that was 3 words. That was good. So in your mind, you're making prasadam.
I mean, offering. Okay. Thinking about offering to Krishna the food, like you said, I guess.
Yeah, because my question is, I'll read again. Where did it go? One must control the mind by engaging it constantly in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So that's what we're looking for. How to engage the mind constantly by engaging it constantly in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Anybody else? The girls are beating us, boys. They're quick on the draw. Come on, guys.
Say remembering.
Remembering? Remembering what?
Pastime.
Pastimes of
Just any old pastime.
pastimes of
So
movies.
one word for that isn't one word for that Krishna Katha, or 2 words?
Okay.
Katha.
Okay. Yeah, or Krishna Lila. Lila Smaranam. Krishna
Okay.
Lila Smaranam. But also remembering pastimes of devotees and remembering pastimes of contemporary devotees that we've served with. Yeah. That's transcendental loving service of the Lord. Okay.
So like reading and hearing, seeing.
Yeah. Reading, hearing, and seeing. Seeing within your mind's eye. Yeah. Okay, good. Now all the pressure's on Muchu in Burger King.
And for me, I like book distribution, kirtan, and graffiti. Two orthodox ones and one very unorthodox one.
Okay, vandalism.
Oh, I saw an article on him.
Yeah.
He's the devotee vandal.
The devotee vandal. Nice.
Devotional vandalism.
By the way, that's the most misrepresenting word for it. I don't do anything illegal these days,
Still,
but I appreciate the humor.
And the word vandalism means deliberate destruction. So it's not really destruction.
okay. I'm just being, but I still think that would make a good T-shirt.
What's that?
Devotional vandalism.
Hey, we're not
Only
in
if
Berkeley.
Anandi buys it, I'll make
Yes, I'll buy it.
it.
And then I'll rage against the machine.
That's another good one. Rage Against the Washing Machine.
Yeah.
Hey, did you draw the picture I asked you to draw from chapter 5?
No, I haven't done my homework yet.
Come on, that's what this is about. One must control the mind by engaging it constantly in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So that's one of your projects. Okay, so Krishna says, he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. So if Krishna says it, like, okay, that's a pretty good recommendation. You know, if the guy that's walking through the store without wearing a mask, he's got a T-shirt on that says, ban idiots, not guns. I saw him this morning. Now, if that guy tells you something and he tells you that you'd be assured of success, well, I don't know if I would take that real seriously. A Krishna conscious person easily achieves the results of yoga practice without separate endeavor, but a yoga practitioner cannot achieve success without becoming Krishna conscious. Okay, text 37. Who read 36? Oh, Suprita did. So go ahead, Captain Tom.
38.
37.
Got to back up. All right, 37. Arjun said, "O Krishna." Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
What is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism?
Mucho, are you ready to read text 38? If you're not, you can just
Almighty armed Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a river cloud with no position in any sphere?
And Anandi, go ahead.
This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Oh, but for you, no one can be found who can destroy this doubt.
Okay, Arjun's got a question. He's really disturbed about it. He spent 3 verses saying how much it bothers him. He's going to leave material life behind and not make it into yoga because the yoga path seems so hard. Now Krishna's going to answer him in the next 7 verses. And he's going to say, definitely be a yogi. A yogi is better than anyone. And even if you don't make it, just by being on the path of yoga, that kind of guarantees you're going to make it. It's kind of the way this reads. Go ahead, Isaac.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction, either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil.
The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy.
Hey, I don't understand this. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
A transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. What is destruction in the spiritual world?
Yeah, I never noticed that. Yeah, I think in the old translation it was in this world or in the next.
Well, that would make a little more sense.
Yeah.
Because that would mean your next incarnation. Right? Like you didn't go to the spiritual world.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why it's done like that.
Well, the translation says in the next life.
Yes, in the word for word translation. We'll have to bring that up with
Advaita.
Yeah. I'm friends with him. It is, yeah, I don't understand why they did that.
What is destruction in the spiritual world? My turn here, 42.
Because, I mean, this is just a guess, but doesn't your karma in the spiritual world run out after a while and then you have to be born again?
Oh, in
Well,
the
if you're in
world?
heavenly planet.
Because you can run out. You can attain Vaikuntha, and then you could then when your good karma is expired, you're born again, and then there's no such thing as being born in the right circumstance once you fall from Vaikuntha.
Yeah, that's going to be addressed in chapter 8. Krishna starts to describe his abode, and he says when one goes there, one never has to return here.
Right.
And the only way you can get there is when all of your karma, everything is it's all gone. You have no more karma. So there are no more noise. Once you're there, you're there.
Right.
So that's why Tom brought that up. Like, what does this mean? So maybe it's, yeah, it is really puzzling. Okay, did you read a verse, Tom?
No, 42?
I think so.
Yeah.
Or, if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is rare in this world.
On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru.
By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures.
Which one? Which verse?
45.
45. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal.
Captain 46. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the creative worker. Therefore, O Arjun, in all circumstances, be a yogi.
And now Muchu gets to read the final verse from Burger King in New
And of
Zealand.
all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and he is the highest of all. That is my opinion.
And that is chapter 6. Congratulations, everyone. You've read a full chapter of Bhagavad Gita. That can go on your resume and you apply for a job. You've completed a chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And you will not meet with destruction in this life or the next, or in the spiritual life. And knowing that Muchu is sitting at a Burger King in New Zealand,
It's a good thing.
my
Yes.
patriotic pride that an American company has infiltrated so far
And now,
away.
and now Krishna's infiltrating it.
Yeah, and they have that vegetarian burger. Are they still
Yep.
doing that?
Yes.
Yeah, just recently I saw the ad and it was something like they're calling it the loving burger or be loving and get
I thought
the
it was,
advertising was saying insinuating that if you're a loving person then this is your burger, which I thought was just awesome.
And they
Really?
cook it on a separate grill.
Do they? That's great.
No, I doubt it.
Oh.
um,
In either case, it's a one good step for mankind.
There you go.
a giant leap for cows. Um, can you see the menu from where you are? I'm curious how much they cost. You're
I
muted.
can't really see it from here.
All right. But anyway, back on the 6th chapter. Let's see what just went on. It started off with Krishna talking about sannyas. The sannyasi is one who does what he's supposed to do, and then he says, one can't be a yogi unless they renounce the desire for sense gratification. Now, yoga in the previous chapter was kind of countered against. You can do yoga, connect, or you can detach yourself from the world. It was like there are two different paths. And Arjun was asking, well, which one do you want me to do? Because for him, yoga meant acting in devotional service. And so he asked, tell me one thing. And so now Krishna is still replying to that answer. He's still continuing with that whole theme about yoga and detachment. So text number 2 of this chapter, Krishna says, you can't be a yogi unless you renounce the desire for sense gratification. Then he talks about making friends with your mind by bringing it under control. When one has conquered the mind, the super soul is reached, for he has attained tranquility. Then he describes what that looks like. You are not interested in the things of the world. Nothing attracts you or repulses you in this world. Let's see. Then he starts talking, he gives the procedure for meditation. Sit like this and focus. What does he say to focus on?
Go
Bridge of the
to a
nose.
secluded place and sit on kusha grass and focus your mind on your nose.
Yep, the tip of your nose.
Yeah.
Gazing at the tip of the nose. Prabhupada says the purpose for that is If you close your eyes, you'll fall asleep. If you look around, you'll be distracted. So just look at the tip of your nose. But something about concentrate on the self. That's pretty much all he says about meditation. Still the mind, focus on the self. And then he starts unpacking it about that. First with the, like a lamp in a windless place, shines. So that's like stage just before samadhi. And then he describes what samadhi is like in those 3 or 4 verses. Boundless transcendental happiness. Then he talks some more about controlling the mind, and then Arjuna says, I can't do that. And Krishna says, yeah, you can. Just got to practice. And practice and detachment. Then Arjuna asks, well, what happens if I don't make it? I've given up the material world, and I have not achieved yet the position of a yogi. And Krishna says, you're going to make it. Might not be in this life, but once you take that path, you will be guided to progress further and further, life after life. Then he gives that whole breakdown that this kind of person is better than this kind, and even better is this kind, but the best of all is a yogi. And then he says, the best yogi is the one who's always thinking about me. So chapter 7 starts off with, here's how you meditate on Krishna. He's gonna, the first verse is gonna say, Yogam Yunjan Madashraya. Here's how you can perform yoga in full consciousness of me. So tune in tomorrow night. Hare Krishna, everybody.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
And what was that? Control the mind by always engaging it in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. It's a phrase like, we hear stuff like that all the time.